COVID has changed things, and it's accelerated a lot of things, and it's in many, many ways, a lot of people believe that the British coastal resorts will really, really benefit from what is happening now. I know, obviously, COVID's been an awful thing and continues to be that, but there are always winners, and there's a real chance that places like Bangor can be a winner. The stats are all there, and if anybody wants these, I'm happy to send them on rather than me kind of trawl through them all. But you can be looking at them, and most of these come from Visit Britain, the Visit Britain site anyway, or YouGov. So anybody can go on these. They're not kind of made up figures. These are there, and it's what's quite interesting is the level of growth that is predicted. Even with a very late opening, we're going to be opening, from June. That's as it stands at the moment, and the predictions are to get to 82% growth on 2020, and still 73% of pre-COVID, which is quite amazing when you've lost so much time, and the amount of spend is going up, but the really interesting thing is that. The prediction for domestic tourism between 2021 and 2023 is significantly up on pre-COVID, and the major drive. There's some major drivers of this which I'll go through. First of all, there's a demographic where people aged millennials, so people aged 25 to 34, which is not millennials. Sorry, that's Gen Zs. So Gen Zs and millennials and Gen Alphas are all there's a trend away from lying on a beach in Torremolinos, in the same way that there's a significant trend away from shopping in, the reasons why Debenhams and BHS have all closed down, because they are part of the past. And there is a significant societal shift going on, and it's going on in the direction. It's a very purposeful shift and a very sustainable shift. We've had now. My generation didn't have a David Attenborough on television 5 times a week. We didn't have a Greta Thunberg to look up to. Now we've got 3 generations who have been bombarded with sustainability, bombarded with the idea of provenance, bombarded with the idea of looking after your generation because they're empirically worse off than previous generations. And all of that, it impacts, and it will impact on our towns. So next slide, please. So what are we to consider? Where are the major considerations and the considerations that have gone into the Bangor waterfront ideas? Accessibility, number one. For too long we've forgotten about how many people do have an accessibility issue. So that's got to be ticked off. Active tourism. People are looking for more authentic experience. I've already said about just lying on a beach, in Benidorm or somewhere. You don't get brownie points for that anymore. Influencers are not posting from lying still on a beach, on a crowded beach. That is what we did when it was novel to get on a package holiday. It's not novel anymore. Experiences are what young people want to show off, and it is, showing off doesn't have to be a bad thing, but the internet, Instagram, TikTok, all of those things are about experiences, and so what we are trying to do with Bangor is to think about what are those experiences, and how can they be, and how can they fit into accessibility, active tourism. 16 to 34 age group are most likely to undertake a dedicated activity holiday. Now, we keep hearing, obviously you've got to look at all ages, but if you want to look at things for the future, you have to look at what young people want to do, and you have to take them as the trends. We hear all the time about the grey pound and how important that is. But when you look at the average spend of a student age young person compared to somebody who's retired, it is 2.7 times a monthly spend from a student, averaged across, to somebody who is retired. So we've got to, for too long we've been saying we've got to look. Obviously we've got to look after old people. A society is judged by how it looks after old people. When it comes to hardcore economic spend, then we've got to look to what young people want to do. Next slide, please. Sport, both taking part and watching, is phenomenal. Just please go on. Look at the research figures for the growth in the purchasing of and joining of paddleboarding, for example. That's just one sport. But anything around water, two wheels, you'll have seen in the news how it's even Halfords have been selling out of bikes. The most commercial of bike shops there's waiting lists. There's been ridiculous waiting lists. You try buying a pair of the coolest and the best at the moment running shoes, winter running shoes, the On brand. You've got a wait for like 8 weeks to get. There are 7 million people have taken up running for the first time in the UK during lockdown. These are not, obviously not 7 million people won't continue doing that, but a good number will. And so bear in mind that most of our ideas most of the ideas we're going to talk about for Bangor Waterfront were done pre-COVID. All of these things we knew anyway, because this was the direction of travel, and COVID has just accelerated that. So next slide, please. Sustainability, I'm sure, if you're on here and you don't understand about sustainable tourism, and 61% are saying now they pay an additional fee to ensure that sustainable tourism standards are met. It matters. It matters to people now. Climate deniers, they do exist, but they're very similar to those people that think you catch COVID from 5G masks. Just complete screwballs. So we have to accept that is, sustainable tourism has to be part of it. Next slide, please. And I think we've probably talked enough about active travel. It's the biggest growth. Wherever you look, whether you look in Visit Britain, whether you look on Google, whether you look on Ipsos Mori, everything points to that's where the growth is. It's not. And when you say active travel, that doesn't mean going into a noisy swimming pool with kids sliding down slides. That is not active. That is not active travel. We're talking. The outdoors was and the natural environment was growing. The desire to experience that was growing again exponentially pre-COVID, and I don't need to tell you why the outdoors is going to be even more important for the next few years. Well, hopefully forever, because we're a more enlightened society now. Next slide, please. Well-being, again, a word that has been growing and growing, a term that has been growing and growing for years now. And you talk about I'm not sure how I was pronounced it right, the hygge that the Danes always talk about, and all around, every country's got its own version of this. But well-being is a growth industry, and that just doesn't mean going to a spa. That's the mental, the emotional, the social, the spiritual, and also when you look at when people say they're going on a well-being trip or holiday, 66% of those are between November and April. Think about that. That completely changes potentially the seasonal aspect of tourism in a place like Bangor. The number one, apart from running, the one that's experienced the biggest growth in 2020 is wild swimming. And anybody that knows Bangor, every time I go there, I marvel at those brave souls, brave or, well, we could use other words, but obviously they are very, very brave, and way braver than I am, who you always see tugging their boys along with them. Even I go out running. One of my favourite places in the world to run is the coastal pathway either way out of Bangor, and you see so many people out there. Not in wetsuits, I hasten to add. Again, crazy, but they're there pulling their boys along in the semi-dark with a little flashing light on top, and you can see how that's growing. Every time I go, there are more and more people doing it. And the, just see what's going to happen. The bottom left of the bottom left there of the article middle of last week in the Guardian, well, in all the papers last week, about how you probably all saw on the news last summer they were focusing mainly on Bournemouth, I think, when they were showing those crowded beaches and the rubbish left. But now the scientists are saying that the chances of catching COVID, on a crowded beach are slim, very slim indeed. And that's not and they are not super spreaders. So just watch your beaches. Watch beaches get absolutely visited like UK beaches visited like never before this summer, and with the science and backing up that it's absolutely allowed. Next slide, please. Culture. Again, the growth in culture. There's going to be a lot of culture is going to have to recover after being hit very hard during COVID. But culture appeals to everybody and to all ages, and it is one of the biggest attractors of spend around the UK. And so culture is going to play a significant role. And culture plays a very significant role in Bangor. That's apart from its natural beauty and its very, very long coastal coastal path and promenades, culture of which Alison Gordon, who's speaking later, can talk more about. Bangor is blessed with as a cultural hotspot, and that means that its future is well set. But we're going to, part of the vision is to make sure that culture can thrive even more. And again, Aaron will probably mention that as well for the section of the waterfront that is under his jurisdiction. Next slide, please. And technology, we've got to make sure that some of the things. Bangor's already been doing some really interesting things with technology. Just simple things that appeal, like a bin that you put your plastic in and tells you how much plastic you've saved from going in the ocean and how it's collecting and bins that are collecting plastic from the bay there. It's just so all of that things count. You tie in your technology to your active travel, to your sustainability, and anyway, we'll go past that or else we'll run out of time. So next slide, please. And obviously I've mentioned this, but post-COVID mask-free breaks. Where the hell are you going to have these unless you go to a mountain, to the hills, or to the coast? So come on, Bangor, you're well set here, because mask-free holidays, are going to be just a very big thing. Next slide, please. So very quickly, just some successful coastal towns that we've been working on. And I'm going to absolutely fly through this because you can look on our website for more about this. We've been working a lot in Lowestoft. Now, Lowestoft is in a way worse position than Bangor. I mean, it's been downtrodden. Lowestoft has been downtrodden for a long, long time. It's lost everything that it had in terms of its mojo. But what we've done there is we created a festival there called First Light Festival, which takes place every summer on midsummer. It's Britain's most easterly beach, therefore it gets the sun on Midsummer's Day. The sun hits this kind of mystic sun of Midsummer's Day in Britain hits Lowestoft Beach, this beach here, the first place it hits Britain on Midsummer's morning, the longest day, the shortest night. So we worked with the council on starting a festival called First Light Festival, which has effectively become the place brand for Lowestoft. And we do a 24-hour festival that starts at 12 o'clock on Midsummer's Eve, and Midsummer's Eve, and finishes at 12 o'clock on Midsummer's Day, and it goes right throughout the night. And we had 40,000 people on the beach there for the first one, and we're doing it. Well, this one is on the day that the lockdown ends, so we might move it 1 week forward. We might be brave and not do it on. But anyway, you don't need to know that. And then from that, a whole series of really interesting things are happening in the town based around First Light. The repurposing of some strange buildings on the promenade, like some fake Victorian, that one that you can see, which is being turned into an all year round kind of mini festival venue with a food hall and everything. And next slide, please. And we're behind all of these, by the way. Scarborough is in a way we're working in Scarborough, doing a lot there, but in a way it's very similar to Bangor in that it's just very simple. We're just taking. This was a fishing. A fishing, and it was a car park really. It was basically a car park that stuck out into a harbour arm that was used as a car park, and we're turning that over now, and the industrial buildings on it into a public space with spaces for markets to pop up, with an outdoor, all year round outdoors sitting out food facility, which, as you've seen, the idea of sitting out, and another good thing that COVID has done has made us more like similar latitude northern European countries, in that we are willing to put a coat on and sit outside rather than moan that it's cold. So that's what we're doing in Scarborough. And next is Morecambe, again, festivals, repurposing through culture, swimming pools that they can't afford to actually make into Lidos again. Next slide, please. And Boscombe in Bournemouth, where we're taking, again, where we took derelict 1950s, they're all beach huts, the top left-hand thing, and turned it into cafes, surf centres, and vertical beach huts that you can stay overnight in. And it's been just a wonderful success. And it's definitely the coolest and the most popular part. This was Drug City. This was a beach that nobody would go to. The toilets had to be closed because it was just a place where drug addicts hung out. Now it is just definitely, without doubt, the coolest part of that coast, and it's been done through creativity, through culture, and through repurposing, and not a giant. There's no, as you've noticed, there are no giant visitor attractions here. These are all people-friendly things. Right, now on to Bangor. So the vision is really simple. You've got is it 2 miles or 2 kilometres of waterfront? I've got a mind blank. One of them anyway. Two somethings, and it's basically 2 miles. I'm pretty sure it's 2 miles. And what we wanted to create along now, but if you came into the town, which it's not immediately obvious. If you got off the train or parked in the centre of town, it's not immediately obvious how blooming amazing the waterfront is, because as you can see on the dotted line map, it twists and it turns, and also in parts it's very inaccessible. It narrows. There are no room for cyclists. You would even struggle with a pram or a wheelchair in parts. So that was why I said earlier, accessibility. But we want to open all of this up, because having that big a waterfront, but you've got to make. There's no point just having bookends at either end. So the whole thing was about having what we call mind, body, and soul, and creating a string of pearls that pop up. Well, they don't just pop up, they exist and will remain there, with pop-ups in between all the way along. So you can find surprise and delight, you can socialise, there'll be art and culture, there'll be sport and active life all the way along, and something for absolutely everybody, whether you want to sit on a beach, whether you want to be active, whether you want to have a tea or a coffee or a decent meal, or whether you want to go and get sporty, or whether you want to do things with kids. It's all there. It's got to be all encompassing. Next slide, please. So just that's just a bigger map, and to show you the complexity of it and the detail, and where we have hotspots, where those big coloured stars are. They're where bigger things happen, and yeah. Next slide is fine. And so I'm going to start now from west to east, and the Skipping Stone area, which I absolutely love. And if you look on the left at those pictures on the left-hand side, that's what it is basically. It's at low tide there are beaches, at high tide there are rocks, and there are already. This is where some of the wild swimming is done, probably more of the wild swimming. And what we did is we asked people, did they need it improving? Because I've noticed myself that, number one, it's very slippy, and you'd have to be pretty stable, and to get down and get in the water, and also not have a fear of cutting yourself and all of that kind of stuff. So it came back. We did loads of public consultation, and what came back clearly was, wouldn't it be a dream if we had some showers, hot showers, sustainably done by solar, and if there was some kind of platform that could make it safer for us to get into water, and some steps, and then some benches where we could sit and bring our food and possibly have a barbecue. Well, why not? I mean, how that's not an expensive, on the scale of of money that you can spend on creating something that fits where society is going. Have it. So that's where we start. And then as you come down, as you head west, that's where you come to Picky Park, which is an existing, very low key but lovely and right for the times children's family amusement park, but without big roller coasters and all of that stuff. And they, we talk to them. They want to expand and have more naturalistic things, to expand their paddling pools and their water splash areas and all of that. So so let's go on to the next one. And then we come down to the marina, and there is so much to do with the marina, and I think I'll leave it more with Aaron to talk more about that, really, because his area but basically with the marina, we've got to make it more accessible. We've got to create a waterfront there that's got a series of eateries and places to park your bike, to fix your bike, places to kick a football, places for kids to splash in water, and places to sit and look over the amazing loch. Belfast Loch is a brilliant view. To look over there, to see the ships coming in and out, and to see the marina itself while you're enjoying a bite to eat. Next slide, please. And then we come on to Seacliff Road, and at the moment this is quite a long trek, and without much happening, and sometimes with very narrow paths. So we've got to, but also it passes potential sites. You can see in purple there a site which floods at high tide, which could be a Lido. It could be a place to learn to canoe. It could be a place to sit out where the pink is. You could a picnic place, a place to sunbathe, another stopping off point, and then all of those numbers that you see along the L9s, the L10s, the L12s. They're all things that art, situ tourists, places to relax, to do stuff as you're heading towards the beach. Nobody told me about the first time I went. I didn't even know there was this absolutely amazing beach, because it is so long. Is this waterfront? So next slide, please. And then we come to Kingsland, which at the moment on the left hand side you'll see is a car park. Is ultimately on the sea side on the loch side of the road is a car park, which car parks are important. But at the moment, and it gets used by you see when I'm there, I usually see a few what do you call them, camper vans, people on tours and there. But really, that is a position to have the most amazing park, a place that, because the views from there are just, well, they're world class. There's no other way to describe it but world class. And when you've got a world class view, to give space that is a world class view that is on water to a car park is totally and utterly remiss, and not fair on people, because the world doesn't revolve around cars. Remember, for a lot of us, it doesn't revolve around cars, and cars sat next to each other don't talk, they don't meet, they don't get married as a result of being together. They're metal lumps. So people need to get down, on the waterfront there, on the seaside and do stuff. Whether that's play areas, whether it's beach huts, whether it's just picnicking, whatever. It needs to be a place for people to get on and be together. And next slide, please. And then this is the final slide, and this is Ballyholme Beach. Ballyholme Beach, Bangor. It's Bangor's beach. and it's bloody amazing. And it's got a long promenade, and within that, you know, what you would never want to do is to make a promenade that felt like a seaside town with Kiss Me Quick and all of that, because that's not what Bangor ever will be and ever should be. But it should have, you know, better toilets, better ice cream facilities, better places to sit, steps, more accessible places to get down to the sand from a 2-level promenade, a really nice promenade. It's got some damaging parts that need fixing, but that's it really. It just needs to be a place where, from at both ends, where you can have a destination and do what people like to do, and that's have low key, a nice hot chocolate, a nice ice cream, a bit of cake, a toasty with your mates. That's it. I think that's my last slide.